reflect on the advantages and disadvantages of technology-based teaching. Today's webinar is going to focus on a kind of a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges of online English language education. In the hope that as we share our experiences, we will perhaps have a better understanding of how to optimally use this medium and also perhaps explore our way forward. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our two panelists. Dr. Ravi Narayan Chakrakorty is professor and academic head at the Regional Institute of English, South India, where he trains teachers in English language pedagogy. He's conducted several teaching education programs, materials development workshops, and led several research projects. He was the lead coordinator in the British Council India's Action Research Mentoring Scheme for the 2019-20 cohort. He's published extensively in the area of ELT. Welcome, Ravi. Thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. Our second panelist is Dr. Leena Mukhopadhyay, Professor and Head, Department of Training and Development at the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. She's also the Director of All India English Language Testing Association. Professor Mukhopadhyay is currently working on two projects, multi-literacy, cognition and education, and reading development intervention, both projects led by the University of Cambridge. She's numerous publications in journals and books in the area of language assessment and evaluation. Hello, Leena. Thank you so much for being here. Very happy to see the two of you here. Now, I propose that we request the two panelists to share their thoughts on today's theme with us before we open it for discussion. I would request Professor Chakrakorty to share his views first. Professor Ravi Narayan Chakrakorty.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I thought Leena would go first. All right, yeah.
Either ways. I mean, it's entirely up to you.
All right. Can I begin, Leena, then?
Absolutely. Right. Please go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let me share my screen then. Yeah. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. Yeah. All right. So this is a topic, as all of you know, online education in the times of COVID-19, issues and challenges for English language education. Let me begin by conducting a short quiz. So you can use the chat box and write agree or disagree. I'm going to show you 4 or 5 statements. Please let us know whether you agree or disagree with these statements. Yeah? Okay. Should I read them out or can you read it from the screen? Yeah, I need to look at the chat box. Yes. So can I request all of you to please use the chat box? Can you see the first statement on the screen? Yeah. Okay. And the statement goes like this: current technologies are unable to develop the communicative competence of learners. Is it true, false? Do you agree, disagree? Okay. Unable to develop the communicative competence of learners. All right, quite a lot of you agree with this. Okay, interesting. Okay, so I can see 1 or 2 Tasneem, 1 or 2 disagree. All right, okay. Let's look at the next statement. Current digital technologies are not able to foster social learning, that is, engage students in interaction, collaboration, and discussion. So, what do you think? Current digital technologies are not able to engage students in social learning. All right. What do you think? Okay. All right. So, I think, yeah, participants are divided in their opinions, agree, disagree. All right. Yes. Okay. Let me show you the next statement. Technology delivers learning content in an automatic way, that in a piecemeal manner. All right, technology delivers learning content in an automatic way, in pieces. All right, doesn't look at learning as a whole. All right, it's not a holistic approach. We deliver content in a piecemeal approach. Agree or disagree? What do you think? All right. Okay. Agree, disagree. All right. Okay. Next. Higher order thinking skills cannot be developed using the current digital tools. Higher order thinking skills cannot be developed using the current digital tools. Yes, no, agree, disagree. It's interesting. Okay, quite a lot of you disagree with this. All right, disagree. Don't know. That's interesting. Don't know. Okay. All right. And the last statement, I guess. The rise of technology, particularly artificial intelligence, will soon mean the teachers are made redundant. All right, the rise of technology will make teachers redundant. What do you think? Or technology will replace teachers? So, what's your opinion? Disagree or never? All right, okay. So at least here, I think all of you are uniform in your opinion. All right, disagree. All right. Okay, that was just a warm up. All right, okay. Nilesh, I mean, I'm a bit surprised that some of you agreed. I mean, current technologies are unable to develop the communicative competence for learners. Some of you have agreed with this. And digital technologies are not able to foster social learning. All right. So looks like it's debatable the role of technology in education and in particular language education. I think the role of technology is debatable. Okay, so we are divided in our opinions. That's really interesting. Okay, now when we say online learning, I mean, it can happen anywhere, right? It can happen anywhere, it can happen anytime, provided we have access to internet. So online distance learning can be divided into three main categories. As you all know, like platform-based learning using LMS, like learning management systems like Moodle, Edmodo, and other platforms. And online learning can also be delivered live. So teacher-directed live streaming using Google Meet, like Zoom and other platforms. And we also have video-based flipped learning when we talk about online distance learning, or a video-based flipped learning, that is a combination of face-to-face and online sessions. So a few years ago, even in our institute, we used to debate like, and some of us were saying we are against the use of technology. So now I think it's not a question of being for or against technology. It's just a matter of the extent to which we can adopt flipped approach and offer blended learning to our learners. So I think we are no longer left with any choice whether to use technology or not. It has become an inevitable part of teaching learning process. But what is important is teachers have to develop expertise. So it's important to give specific training to teachers to be successful in a digital environment. So we need to bring in a transformation from teacher-directed, top-down, and one-size-fits-all approach to a more student-driven, bottom-up, customized, and differentiated approach. I think that's where the challenge lies. How do we bring about this change, this transformation in our approach? So let me reflect on some of the teacher development programs we conducted at RIE Bangalore. All right, so a few of the next slides will be my own reflections. So when the pandemic set in the month of March 2020, I think since then, we were trying to come to grips with remote teacher education. So we had to switch over from face-to-face teacher education programs to remote distance learning programs. So since April 2020, that's when we had to come to grips with remote teacher education for the first time. And remote and blended teacher education can be effective if tools and technologies of blended and online learning are used effectively to bring together teaching practice, pupil learning, and new approaches for assessment, discussion, and reflection. So remember, we are talking about teacher training programs. It's very, very important to bring together several different elements, such as teaching practice. We also have to think of student learning when we train teachers, and then we'll have to plan new approaches for assessment, discussion, and reflection. So what we have done is we have used an LMS called Moodle, so with discussion groups, and then we had teacher mentoring sessions as part of our teacher education program. It was a 1-month certificate in English language teaching program. It's called CELT, 1-month CLT program delivered online. So we used Moodle, and then we had teacher mentoring sessions. We had self-study groups. Teachers also did their practice teaching online with the help of feedback provided by the faculty members. They had to discuss their lesson plans, and then we observed their online teaching practice sessions, gave feedback. And then there were also a series of individual presentations throughout this 1-month in-service teacher training program. So we provided them hands-on experience in using digital resources, familiarized them with digital pedagogy. However, remote teaching and learning happened at the state level. See, when they went back, once they completed online teacher education program, what happened at the state level was these were teachers from 5-6 South Indian states like Andhra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Telangana. So what happened at the state level mostly was education was offered through television. There were live lessons broadcast on television, also on radio in some states, and then they provided home-based packages, textbooks, and other print materials. So there was a mismatch.
Ravi,
yeah.
I'm so sorry to intervene, but some
Yes.
participants are requesting if you could put on the slideshow.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Is it okay now? No? It's actually in the slideshow mode. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. So what I'm trying to say is that there was a slight mismatch between the kind of training we provided to teachers, and the kind of teaching and learning happened at the state level using technologies such as TV, radio, and print-based materials. All right. Okay. So let's just try to understand how many of you are familiar with these platforms and tools. This will help me discuss the next slide. So how many of you are familiar with these tools? What I'd like to do is, I'll take you to the next slide. I'll share this link in the chat box. Please open the link. Please open the link and take this quiz, please. Yeah, and you'll have to use the code. There is a code. All right. I'm just trying to see how many of you are familiar with these tools and platforms. Okay, the code is open the link. Please open this link, Mentimeter, and use the code 13629373, and then please type your responses. Are you familiar? How many of you are familiar with these tools? If familiar, have you used it? Familiar and have used it. I'm just familiar with the tools, but not used. I'm not familiar. All right. Yeah. Can you all submit your responses, please? The code is 13629373. Okay, 1 second.
Ravi, if it's not a
Yeah.
botheration, if you
Yes,
could,
please.
sort of maximize the screen so that, the list of slides on the left is something that we could do away with. There
Okay.
are repeated requests.
Ravi, if I can intervene, you just need to
Yeah.
click from current slide and it will go into the slideshow.
Okay. So is it now? It's on the slideshow mode. Am I right? Is it okay?
You click
No.
on from current slide.
Yes. 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 Once I just need to see the chat box, so that's why I'm switching from slideshow to the other mode. Okay. So looks like, okay, what I'm trying to see is that, so looks like some of you are familiar with some of the tools, all right? Some tools seem to be semi-familiar, like Padlet and then Kahoot, whereas some of the other tools and platforms do not seem to be so much familiar. Okay, so many of you are not familiar with, for example, Edmodo, Google Site, Google Earth, and then WordWall. All right, yeah. Okay, so that's the result. Some of you are familiar with some tools. Most of you are not familiar with a few of these online tools and platforms. Okay, so is it okay, Ruchi, now? Is it fine?
Well, I can still see the list of the slides on my screen. I'm wondering why that is happening if you've put it on the slideshow.
Okay.
Is it, I mean, if it's on the presentation mode, then Gitanjali, can you see the slides on the...
Yeah, Ravi, on the second
Yeah.
panel from the top, just do the second icon from current slide.
Okay.
Just press that. The second panel from the top and the second icon from current slide. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it okay?
I'm surprised it still is. For some reason,
Isn't.
sometimes on Zoom this happens. Never mind. But the slides are still very visible. So
Yes, I think you should just go on.
Just go on. Yeah,
Yeah.
they are visible.
Okay. Okay.
View into 200%, and then it can become better.
All right.
I suggest you carry on. At least the slides are visible. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Please carry on.
Okay. 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 Right. Yes. Okay. All right. So when we evaluate these types of tools and apps, we need to examine how information is presented on these tools and platforms. All right. That's what are the pedagogical features. How information is presented in these tools, what information is presented, content knowledge. So we need to have knowledge of the content and how the tool or app is designed to influence pedagogy and content knowledge. So it's important to have a good knowledge of pedagogy, content, and technology. And effectiveness of distance learning amid the pandemic should be assessed based on 3 criteria, right? Access, engagement, and assessment of learning outcomes. Any program, whether it is teacher education program or whether it is student learning, I think we need to assess the effectiveness of a program based on these three criteria. Can they access the tools, technology? And what is the extent to which they're able to engage themselves in an online learning platform like this? And how do we assess the learning outcomes? So these three are the key points, I guess. So I was talking about our 1 month in-service teacher training program, right? So what challenges did the teachers experience during the course? So these are some of the random responses. I picked out some random responses. For example, some of the teachers said, reading the course materials on the computer. I'm just quoting them. Reading the course materials on the computer and mobile phone irritated my eyes, all right? And then attending from home is very difficult because I was sometimes engaged with my school works as well as family works. And then connectivity, microphone problems. And then a few said, I couldn't complete my pre-test and my mobile didn't help me to participate live in the training. So some of them were not able to complete pre and post tests and less time to finish more assignments. And then I had no much technical knowledge. I had only mobile. During the session, I felt bad for not having any other equipment. And the others said it was difficult for me to be attentive all through the sessions online. It's quite challenging to clarify my doubts and involve actively in discussions. And then one particular teacher said the obvious challenge was the anxiety to stay connected with proper network at all times, especially during virtual presentation. So look at the kind of words and phrases they are using. Anxiety, difficult, and then worried, and then phobia, for some of them said. I was frightened, one of them said, frightened about connectivity issues. And then one teacher said, last but one point, in spite of my illness, I attended all the sessions with great courage and confidence. I took rest in the morning hours and I attended class during afternoon by taking medicines. All right, and then felt nervous while teaching online. So if you look at their responses, right, you can see that apart from internet, apart from access to technology, there are several other concerns raised by teachers. And teachers' well-being is one of the issues. Yeah, teachers' well-being. I think these are some of the things we need to keep in mind when we deliver instruction online. And then out of 180 teachers who completed this 1 month course, 108 registered, they registered for the course, 98 were able to complete the course successfully, but 10 dropped out. So this is a case in every cohort. We have done 4 such programs. So look at the number of teachers who dropped out, 10, definitely 10 in every cohort. We don't know the reasons. And some of them were not able to complete the assignments, the online tasks. So to make this online education successful, I think we teachers need to acquire new types of knowledge. One, as I already said, pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge, and technological knowledge, and examining the relationship among 3 core knowledge domains for educators. The relationship between these 3, I think that's important. And in addition to this, we need to acquire technological content knowledge, and then technological pedagogical knowledge, and technological pedagogical content knowledge, because technology plays a very important role, right? So we have to have technological content knowledge, what is presented in the technology, technological pedagogical knowledge, how to use these tools and devices, and technological pedagogical content knowledge.
Ravi, could you please take us to the slide that you are on? Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Okay, right. The importance of using your pedagogical expertise. So you have to use your pedagogical expertise and content knowledge to evaluate and select digital tools and apps that will be the most appropriate for student learning. Yeah, this is quite a challenge. We have to use our pedagogical expert and our experience of teaching at the primary or higher education level, for example, and then select appropriate tools and apps that will fit in our context. Okay. Okay, and then I was also looking at a book called Our Rights in a Digital World, where children around the world provided a clear vision of the internet they want. And they discussed how barriers can affect their rights in the digital world and what action they want to see taken. These are children from across the world. Can you see the screen? Yeah, this is a book. If you Google, you will get this book, Our Rights in a Digital World. So one of the issues was gender. So globally, particularly in low-income countries, girls encounter significant gender-based barriers to access. So children across the world are concerned that girls do not have equal access to digital technologies, and that may affect their rights and maybe even their life chances. And then language. So another important concern raised by these children was the language use. There should be greater availability of relevant content in other foreign languages, not just English. So we talk about multilingualism, bilingualism, right? We live in a multilingual, multicultural society. What is the language used in most of these online tools and platforms? Is the content available in regional languages, in local languages? So accessibility to tools in other languages is very important. That's what the children said. Children across the world want governments and technology providers internationally to provide age-appropriate and culturally relevant material in their own languages. And then the issue of disability. Make technology more accessible for those with disabilities. Children across the world want governments and technology providers internationally to create easier access for a range of users with different accessibility needs, including providing easy to use accessibility tools by default, right? So look at the course books, the workbooks that we have. Can all the children use these workbooks? Do we have we made them accessible to children with special needs, children with learning disabilities? So that's the issue. Therefore, as educators, we have a shared responsibility in building the digital world that young people deserve. Digitalization should not lead to marginalization. All right, there is a new term being coined now. It's called digital marginalization. I think it'll be very unfortunate if we see a society that is marginalized because of the digital divide. And then issues related to online education. For example, some of these, after completing the course, some of these teachers said, so most of my students hesitate to speak in English and do not respond in a virtual classroom. Many of them were very active and were good at speaking when they were attending regular classes last year. So they were active, they were speaking, but suddenly when they switched over to online learning, students stopped participating. So we have to reflect on this. Why? What could be the reasons? And students watch classes on edutainment channel that is owned by the government. After the class, teachers share worksheets based on that class on WhatsApp. I found that some of my students were not attending the class and not doing the worksheets. I inquired what happened to them. The parents told me that they give their mobile phones to their children to attend classes, but children are playing online games and chatting with their friends instead of learning. So these are just a few issues that teachers shared during the training program. There are many such issues. So what is important now is to reflect on this, to explore such issues, to reflect on them, ask questions to ourselves. So what can we do? So I think it's time to reflect on some of these issues that we have encountered during online education. To identify such critical incidents, reflect on them, and plan for change. And then we have to think of design principles for online English language education that is appropriate to our context. We cannot have universal design principles, right? We have to make them suitable for our context. And also, we'll have to think of design principles for effective online teacher education. I think this is the last but one slide. So the key areas for further exploration are monitoring student dropout and disengagement. He was talking about teacher dropouts in a teacher training program. So we'll have to monitor and then find out the reasons for their disengagement and think of the continued role of remote learning. What role does it play in future, in the post-pandemic world, for example? And then we have to plan for remediation, mitigating learning losses during school closure, and then have to plan for new approaches to assessment, And then equally important is skills development support to teachers, and then psychosocial support, well-being and better mental health of teachers, students, and their parents. I think these are the few areas for further exploration. And to answer one of the statements that I gave you in the beginning, I don't think teachers will be replaced by technology. Whereas on the other hand, teachers who don't use technology will be replaced by teachers who do. Teachers who don't use technology will be replaced by teachers who do. So don't let technology get in the way of good teaching and learning. Technology should not be in the driving seat, right? And technology is merely an augmentation to teaching, to learning, all right? And now I think it's time to think of the guidelines issued by the UGC. The UGC document says you'll be allowed to teach 40% of any course online, and the rest 60% can be taught offline. And we should not. The pandemic is a chance to rethink education, not settle for online lectures. Yes, I think that's all I have to say right now. I'm open for discussion after Lina's presentation. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ravi. I think this is a very stimulating presentation, and you raised so many pertinent issues. Particularly, what you said about the rights of the young learners in the digital world, and how, as educationists, we have the prime responsibility of ensuring a system which is more open and inclusive. I think that was a wonderful point that you raised. And the second very important point, which I'm sure our discussion we'll have to deliberate on, is the fact that we need to train teachers on three interrelated domains of knowledge: content, pedagogy, and technology. So I think we have a lot to discuss. But before we do that, could I please invite Professor Mukhopadhyay to share her views with us?
Thank you, Ruchi. Just give me a moment. I'll share my side screen and then
Sure.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, Lena, it is visible.
Thank you, Ruchi, for your kind words of appreciation. And I would first of all like to place my thanks to the FORTELL team, Dr. Khanna, Gitanjali, Rachna, for warmly inviting me for this first webinar for FORTELL through the Zoom meet. So we are using technology to do first of its kind, right? Bringing in trying to create a platform during these COVID pandemic times, and trying to probably reach out to the teachers and also try and share what we are going through. So my presentation today is not going to be anything theoretical. It's not going to be anything heavy. I will just walk down the memory lane for the last 15 months that I have been going through with my students across some 11 courses that I have taught. All of a sudden it feels a lot. So I will share my journey, and I hope that the teachers who are here, I think all of us, our primary identity is that of a teacher and then of a researcher and a mentor. We give feedback to our students, try to inspire them, help them apply ideas, so on and so forth. So probably there'll be some takeaways. So what I'll do is I'll demonstrate what I have been doing in my courses, and I will probably take forward some of the concerns that Professor Ravi Narayan Chakrakodi just presented, and many of the things that he said will also be reiterated in what I present. So some of the things which he has already mentioned, I will probably go past them. But what I would like to share with all of you is my experiences with my students and how they have made the online classes come alive. So I'm hugely grateful to them. I don't know if some of them are attending this session. So I would like to place my gratitude for them as well, because without the other end, however much I'm enthusiastic, energetic, innovative, things would fall flat if they were not an equal participant in this. So they are very much a part of the learner agency, so much so that sometimes I have actually experienced and let go of myself, and made flipped classroom experiences. I have experienced it because they have taken over and made the courses alive. So without much ado, let me begin. So the thing is, we are the stakeholders. Both the teachers and the students are the two most important stakeholders of education, and very much so of online education. So as Ravi said at the beginning, that we can no longer be in a state of willing suspension of disbelief. Yes, online education is, it is on us, and we have to live through it, and maybe it will stay even beyond the pandemic time. So it is not like a question of either or, although both the parties have resistance. We had certain fears, certain anxieties, whether things will work, etc., etc., whether I would be able to deliver my lessons, whether the students would be able to understand what was being delivered, apply it, because ELT is an application field, right? So I deal with students who are pre-service teachers, and some of them are young researchers. So they also had similar concerns, and we were all on the same boat on Noah's Ark, with a few things to make us go together. So at the beginning, it was really very difficult, that it really did not make sense. Although personally, I have been using the online platform in terms of, asynchronous classes to a certain extent, 14 for the last 14 years, I would say, with the beginning of participation in Relo courses in the US. And then when I went to teach in Germany, so half of the course, as Ravi was suggesting, that the UGC has come up with this kind of a guideline. So half of the course would be on the online portal, and the rest would be delivered, or rest would be face-to-face participation in class. So it's not as though it was entirely alien to me. However, to bring the entire thing into the online portal did give me a lot of jitters. I spent days, nights thinking about how I would make myself accessible to my learners, and how would I know what is happening in their minds? Are they getting at all from something? Will they be able to apply the ideas that we are discussing in class? So let me share the journey of what I have been going through. I very soon realized, as in the outside world, there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of anxiety, there was a lot of trauma, which was being created because of the COVID pandemic situation. We as teachers and our learners had to kind of behave, as though everything is normal, and we have to get on with life, and everything has to be completed on time, etc., etc. And so, although outside it was not very much normal, inside the safety of our homes, we had to overnight create classrooms in our rooms, maybe in our bedrooms or drawing rooms or wherever, in a silent corner, and continue with the classes. So that was the kind of a context in which the online education started. And so at the beginning, when at EFLU, we started online teaching from 15th of March. I remember the date very, very distinctly, because it was a huge thing for us. The previous week, we had met the students face to face, and on the 10th of March, our university announced a lockdown, and the students had to hurriedly go back home, pack off their things. And they were told that you're going back for 2 to 3 weeks. So just pack as much as things as you would need, go back to the safety of your homes, and then we will call you back. So that was the situation. The last week I was teaching them face to face, and suddenly I had to graduate to online education. So with a lot of resistance, with a lot of unsurety, I started with the asynchronous mode, and I used to have frequent discussions with my colleagues, and we used to share equal concerns, that how we would do it in the online modality. And synchronous classes seemed like a thing of a distant reality. It was just not possible to see that things could go also in the synchronous manner. So I started off with the asynchronous mode, and then gradually, as months progressed, by the time it was August or September, I could also, graduate to the synchronous mode. So my journey of those 6-7 months that I had shifting and from the asynchronous to the synchronous and bringing about a blended mode of learning is what I would like to present now. So let me show you what I went through. So before that, these are some of the things that I think Ravi was also mentioning in his presentation. And I have here on this slide, I have put together ideas which are pertinent for us as ESL educators. And these are for mostly for pre-service teachers, but these could be equally applicable for, school learners or college learners for whom English is a subject or English is the medium of instruction. So the most important challenge was, understanding how to transact knowledge, that whether it would be interactive, whether the constructs, theories, paradigms I would be able to deliver it to the learners in the way that I would be able to do it on the face-to-face mode. Of course, in the face-to-face mode, I used to do a lot of blackboard work along with, making presentations and all that. But suddenly their faces were missing. So I think the student faces are mirrors of ourselves, that we realize that how much is making sense to them by looking at their faces, by making eye contact, by when they ask us questions and things like that, which was totally absent. So it felt like, that everything is happening on the laptop or the computer system, and that is getting delivered to the learner. So transaction of knowledge is something I felt as an educator, was the first impediment, and how the online education could match up to that. And then very, very importantly, no longer did we have access to hard copies of reading. So when the lockdown started, we all left campus thinking that, okay, we will come back after a few days. So all my things were stacked in my office room, never did I know that I would not be able to go back to the campus for several months together. And the same with the students, that they had no longer access to hard copies of. Now, when there are no hard copies to read, I'm really not too sure how deep the learning, the links between the concepts happen in the absence of hard copies. So it was mostly on the systems, or sometimes it was also only through the mobiles. And then libraries, which are the seat of learning, became entirely inaccessible. So that was one part. The second part is, because ELT or ESL education is an applied discipline, we also need to train our students, our researchers, to build certain skills. For example, to do linguistic analysis of learner data, look at textbook analysis, look at the analysis of language in order to build materials, design assessment tools, etc., etc. So how were we to build those skills only using the online modality also came as a huge challenge. And then, in the class, what we all do as teachers is we monitor our students' progress from time to time on a daily basis. And this is something which was not very much happening in the asynchronous mode, I realized very soon. And so I constantly thought of how to pep up their lives, so that I could get some feedback from them, what is happening in their mind. So classroom monitoring was again another challenge, which I thought was pulling us back. And then, of course, there were other associated psychological learning issues like classroom interactions, which are a huge, comfort zone for the learners. Especially at EFLU, we have a culture of, peer interaction, learning through peers, and interacting through peers, in addition to teacher-learner interaction. So those components suddenly seem to go amiss. And then the feedback that the teachers give, or the learners give to the teachers, as individuals or within group. And then also addressing individual learning differences, like Ravi was mentioning, that children who are a bit slow or would have some learning disabilities, children who are visually challenged, etc., etc. How do we cater to individual learning differences? And then, of course, there was a major problem of accessibility to the devices, portals, tools, internet connectivity, etc., etc. And also, I realized that none of these learners had signed up for an online course or an online program, and yet, unfortunately, they were made to go through that. So there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of unsurety. I mean, imagine if we as teachers were feeling so much unsure of the situation, what would be the level of anxiety of my students or my learners? So acceptability of online classes actually took quite some time, both for us as well as our learners. So armed with so many problems, I slowly started thinking that how things could be synchronized, how links could be created, how I could make my classes, my application of knowledge more interactive. And therefore, what I did was certain things which I would now share. So what I did was, and till date what I'm doing is, now I feel as though the boat is no longer rocking too much. So we have come into the middle of the ocean, and it is more or less, I would say, a flat ride. It is not that kind of a tumultuous kind of a journey that we had at the beginning. So what I've done is, although our university has an LMS portal, but for certain reasons of connectivity, etc., I have remained with Google as a platform. And I have looked at, Google for Education tools, and tried to integrate in between those tools, so that my learners don't have to look into different platforms. Because these days what happens is, because there are so many technological tools available, without even checking for the validity or the usability of those tools, people seem to jump onto them and then realize that no, this is not working for me. So what I did was, I'm a very conservative teacher, so I thought, let me go with the time-tested things. And because Google for Education has been around from 2009, and they have undergone several changes, and the platform has become very robust. I also had a talk with my colleagues who were also using the Google platform. I settled down for Google as an LMS platform, and of course the ubiquitous mobile for communication with the students. And we did a whole lot of collaboration, interaction, feedback. We shared our feelings with each other. We shared our anxieties, and we also comforted each other. So it was very heartening to see that not only was I comforting my students, they were also in turn comforting me. And these are my favorites, the emoticons. I think they do wonders to our level of communication. Although I would be talking about how, I went to making the different tools synchronized, so that I could make a connection between transaction of knowledge, building of skills, and other psychological issues pertaining to learners and accessibility. Let us quickly look at, a snapshot of the prerequisites to make online education kind of successful. So there are these four quadrants. So the first quadrant is for all of us, all the stakeholders, that do we have a certain level of connectivity? Do we have access to devices? And then the second quadrant is for the learners, that what would be their degree of flexibility, adaptability to integrate their learning with technology. So that is very important. That are they feeling comfortable? Are they feeling convinced? Do they want to continue in this modality? Although it is a top-down approach, that it has been thrust to us by the corona pandemic times, that we have to go through the online education. But still, as as individuals, we need to also be able to feel comfortable, or at least it's my job to motivate them to feel comfortable. Otherwise good results would not come out of the courses. And then their readiness to participate, share and learn within a group. So not imagine that the peer group interaction is entirely missing. So how did I make up for that? And then the third quadrant is for us as teachers. So our skills and knowledge being transacted through the online modality, technology. So a lot of time, I would say lion's share of my time went into redesigning my materials and planning lessons for online education to make it more online ready. So I already had the content, having taught for the last, almost a decade and a half, but then suddenly I had to spin it over and make it more online ready. So that was hugely time consuming, though I don't mind it now. Right now, I mean, I would say that at the beginning it was a lot of struggle, but now, as I said, it has reached a state of stability. And then in class, the things that we have, transaction of knowledge, encouragement of interaction, and giving feedback to learners, So these were things which we will have to think of how the online education can also provide a platform to do each of these. We cannot keep saying that no, the online education cannot do this. At least that is what I feel, and that is what made me rethink how I could redesign my, the manner in which I delivered my lessons. So what I did was, this is a fairly, I mean, it looks a little complex, but I mean, this is a shelf that I have taken from Padlet as a tool. So shelf is a design where we have these small boxes, and where we can put different things, and then make interconnections. So this is again something that I've used with my learners, but here I'm using to just project, the kind of tools that I have used for Google for education. So what I've done is I've used these several tools. So let me take you through this these set of boxes. It will just take me 2 minutes time. So we will look at the first column on the left hand side. So I have used Drive for storage and building resources, and then the classroom, Google Classroom, has been used to create the Google Meet links and to deliver the lessons in a synchronous manner. And then Google Classroom has been used for submission. I mean, I have used it for submission of assessment responses. So students have submitted assessment responses, and they have also submitted their classwork responses as well. So sometimes they have submitted in Google Drive, but most of the times when it is a formal submission, they have made it in Google Classroom, because Google Classroom creates a learner portfolio automatically. So that is the joy of using Google Classroom, or any other LMS for that matter. And then I have used the stream on the classroom for discussions, to generate discussions, both at the level of understanding how individual differences have an impact on the lessons, as well as their understanding of the lesson. So I've used stream very extensively. And then for response submissions for the learners, what I have asked them to do is access the Google Drive, access the Google Classroom, and sometimes we have also used Google Mails, and many of them have reported that using this extension Grammarly has actually made them monitor their language very well, and made them conscious about the patterns of errors that they tend to make, and how to edit their responses before submission. And for materials production, what I've done is I have done a whole lot of things, used Google Slides, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets. I do a couple of courses on research methodology. So I have taught statistics and analysis of data using high-level statistical packages, which are available within Google Spreadsheets. So I've done that with my researchers. Used Google Analytics based on Google Forms, and then of course Slides Carnival, from where one can download several types of slides, which are a little fancy, like the one I'm using today. Right, and then I have also for tutor instructions, through which I wanted to make my classes interactive. I used WhatsApp chat box. But very soon, what happened when I was redesigning my materials, I realized that was a lot of, effort on my hands. And very soon my hands gave off. I have a nerve issue. And then very soon I realized I could no longer type on WhatsApp boxes. So I devised this method of, sending them voice notes, which fantastically clicked with them. And I also used to send voice notes on Google Drive. So I would record it on my laptop, and then I would post it on the Drive folder, and they would listen into that. That was during March, April, May, when the classes were mostly asynchronous. And then for tutor feedback, what I did was very soon I realized that there is a read and write extension, and I no longer wrote my feedback on the comments box, but rather I would click on that icon and I would record my voice. So for every point that I would like to give feedback to my learners, I would use read and write along with voice notes for the group feedback using the WhatsApp chat box. So nothing fancy, but something that I wanted to integrate everything together so that there are, logical, convincing links. And this I will just give you a little time to read. These are my learner reflections based on what I have done. So these are 4 of my learners who have reflected. So you may not find the time to read through all of them, but if you can just glance through them, through which I got some feedback in terms of how the sessions went and how the peer meet sessions became interactive, became an interactive modality. So what I would do is every week on a particular day for every course, I would have a peer meet session. So one would be a tutor meet session where I would be interacting with them. It would be teacher led. And the other would be peer meet sessions where they would meet in smaller groups of 3 to 4 to 6 members. And I would assign them a task, and then they would do the task and report it back to me on the WhatsApp chat box as a learning log. So these are their reflections. So you could take 2 minutes time to read. So you can see that they have given me feedback on the voice notes, on the peer meet sessions, And initially how one of them was unmotivated, did not want to participate, but then got around and realized that this is the only way. And so if you are interested, I could share these reflections with you at a later point, but now I'll just hurry up and finish the slide. So what I would like to end my presentation with is to share with you that I have experienced along with my learners a steady growth, in terms of engaging with self-learning, because without self-learning, online education cannot be successful, because learners have to take more responsibility of their learning, because the online education is just a complementary platform. It cannot replace face-to-face education. So self-learning, the responsibility is heightened, and along with that, the online education can now do both in a synchronous and asynchronous manner. All of it is well blended, I would say, not fantastic, but at least students are getting to realize that they have to take more responsibility for their personal growth, along with whatever the tutor provides them. And so this is my beautiful, wonderful team from EFLU. So we had chronicled our online education experiences on Padlet. And this is what the slide that I showed you. These are their reflections, and they were very happy when I told them that this is what I'm going to use their reflections for. I don't know if they're participating in this presentation today, webinar today. So thank you, all of you, for your wonderful reflections. And so with that, I would end my presentation. And what I would say at the end is, like, we cannot shun away online education. Rather, probably there would be a time, this is the time for us to sit back and reflect that we have to bring in some changes to our education system, especially if we look at what is happening to the 10th class and 12th class exam, and the concept of assessment, that we cannot no longer be very much assured that we can have a summative examination for certification at every, at the end of every academic year. So therefore, we should take our internal assessments more seriously. And in the same spirit, we should take online education also equally seriously, and try to see how we can blend our, face-to-face, whatever we do on the face-to-face, also in the online, provided there is accessibility to the internet, and also our learners have access to do so. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Leena. Thank you. This is really speaking very, very informative. And some of these tools are very new to me, though I'm pretty tech savvy myself. And the reason why I've had to intervene is that our dear moderator has been locked out. So, so she just called me and asked me to intervene. Now, Rachna, we'll have to make space for her. Let me see, I'll have to request one of our regular Fortellians to leave so that, Charu, I guess you're there, Charu. Could you make way for Ruchi to join us? I'm sorry for this. This is most unexpected, Rachna, just tell her to join. I'm sorry. This is, again, we should have had a session on how to deal with technological issues. Yes, join, Ruchi. We made way for you.
Let's do it next time.
Yes, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. She's coming in. So sorry, Leena, for this.
No, not at all.
Untimely, Yes. So I am not admitting anybody else till I get Ruchi in.
I think she's in. I can see her. Ruchi, you have to unmute yourself, dear. Achha, she cannot unmute herself. Gitanjali, you have to.
Yes. Rachna, make her the co-host and I shall unmute her. Yeah. You see, this has been so active. The moment there is one spot vacant, there are always 3 more people waiting to join you guys here. Yes, Ruchi can now take over. Ruchi,
thank you so much. And this is technology at its worst for me. So Leena, I'm so sorry I missed out some part of your presentation, but please carry on.
She's finished. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, but Lena, thank you for a very interesting presentation. And I think the humorous recapitulation of what it means to, take on online classes from home. I think that reminded me of all the goof ups, that we've experienced over this time. But on a serious note, I think the way you took us through the journey, and you chronicled and, sort of explained the kind of challenges that you and your learners faced, and how, very intelligently and timely you tried finding, strategies to overcome them. I think there is a lot to learn from that. I wish we could just carry on, but we are running out of time, so I will open this for a Q&A round. um, Please, you can send your anyone who has any questions, you can put them in the chat box, and for any of the panelists. All right, there's a question: how can we develop the interest of the school students towards online education? Would any one of you like to take that?
Developing interest of school students towards online education, right? Yeah. So I don't know like how to develop their interest. See, most of the states, they're not able to use many of these tools, online tools and platforms. At the most, teachers are able to engage students. I'm talking about primary, secondary school education. They're able to engage, and teachers working government sector, they're able to engage students on WhatsApp. WhatsApp seems to be the only medium through which they can reach out to students. And one particular teacher, I mean, she was sharing 75 ways of using WhatsApp. So 75 ways of using WhatsApp. So I was wondering, what is this? So,
Okay.
so yeah.
All right. I think we just have time for one more question. Do we need to shift the assessment more from summative to formative? Lena, would you like to take that up?
Yeah, sure. Uh, Ruchi, could you just repeat what you said?
Is there a need to shift from summative to formative? Given the changing parameters, would it be wiser to move on to a dominant mode of assessment, which is formative in nature?
Yeah, without sounding prescriptive, and without sounding like I'm throwing some pearls of wisdom. This is the need of the hour, that we need to rethink our Indian education system, especially across all levels. I mean, probably not the primary education, but wherever there is a summative examination which is tied to certification, that based on the summative examination, the student will get a certificate, and then they can go to the higher level and things. So, which are the most high stakes examinations? So, the 10th class, 12th class, college examination, masters, etc., etc. So, though in those contexts, if we can slowly, but it will take a lot of time, for the administration, for the government to realize that the health of education can be bettered, if I can make that statement, only and only if we take our teachers and their ability to do formative assessment seriously. So just like, and I will be reiterating the words of my very favorite teacher, Professor Jacob Tharu. I'm sure most of you know him, that he always used to say, in our classes, and I have seen him in several webinars and several conferences, saying that, we never question our teachers when they teach. But the moment it comes to assessment, we take away the tool from them. And that is where the mistrust lies. And that is something that we will have to, undergo a shift in mentality. And that will not come only at the individual level. It cannot be entirely bottom up, but the top down process has also to support it. And the pandemic is actually staring at us and telling us that, that unless we take our formative assessment seriously, then we are playing with the future of our students. Because right now, look at the mess that CBSE is in. It is saying that we will look at the results of, I mean, I'm very angry today when they were flashing those things on the television that they're going to take class 10 results, class 11 results, and class 12, where is the teacher going to get those information from? Is there any surety that the teacher will be given those information in a valid manner and the teacher can put them together? Does the teacher have the training to convert those, assessment responses into a formative format and give a final grade? Will the teacher have to say, will the teacher be given that role to do? That, okay, this is the grade that you give and we validate it across other content grades and then we reach at a conclusion. So will it be a collective decision or would it be a very hurried kind of a decision where only a few influential people take care of the grading? And I have a feeling that is what is going to happen. So
all right, thank you, Leena, and I wish we could carry on with this discussion. The questions are just pouring in and I'm profusely sorry, but we are running out of time. I would like to thank our two panelists for sparing their time from very busy schedules and readily agreeing to do this webinar. A big thanks to all the participants for truly making this session interactive. My only request to all of you is that those of you who are not a member of the FORTELL fraternity, please subscribe to FORTELL. You will get all our details online on www.fortell.org. Thanks once again, Professor Chakrakorty and Professor Mukhopadhyay. Thank you, all of you. Have a lovely day. Thanks a ton.
Thank you.
Thank you, FORTELL. Thank you,
Ruchi.
Ruchi.
Let's have a group session, a group photo session, Ruchi. Always
sure.
for our records, and sure. we can put it on at the
yes
website.
Could I request all the participants to switch on their cameras for a minute, please?
And give me 2 minutes of your smile so that I can just take screenshots. Right. Yes. Here we go. That's the first screen. Move on to the next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gitanjali, now I think that this should be better.
Yeah, just one more. That's it.
Thank you. And I just one last thing. I just can't resist saying this. That Ravi and Leena, we actually go back enriched. Because I have to say this, that just by sharing your knowledge and experience, I think we have realized that this is also a transitional phase. Online education is here to stay, but probably now what we want to have to deliberate on is perhaps what Leena said, a blended learning mode. And maybe the next FORTELL webinar ought to be on that, how to, optimally use the blended learning mode. So with that, and with profuse thanks to all of you, I would like to end this session. And we so look forward to having this webinar very soon on behalf of FORTELL. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you.